All right, we're live. Welcome everyone to Rough Cuts. It's August 10th, 2026, and I'm here with Nate in Cardboard Veritas for our recap episode of the National Sports Card Convention in Chicago, which we just came back from about 8-9 days ago. I also wanted to welcome the three folks who came up to me at the show who recognized my voice from the podcast. It's always fun to meet folks out there who listen to the show and confirm that we do in fact have listeners. For the most part, Nate and I always say we just do this to talk to a few card buddies about once a month. But it's always fun to meet folks who listen to the episodes or watch them on YouTube and to chat with you. So that was a lot of fun. So Nate, welcome. How's it going?
Hey, what's up, Jonathan? Yes, agreed. Always great to hear feedback on the show. As we, discussed, we don't do it all that often, but we try to make them quality when we do. Love hearing from people who enjoy it. So that's cool. And really excited to talk about the National. I think, you and I always have a lot of good vibes going into that and coming out of it. So we got a few folks rolling in here. Hopefully, both a mix of some that were there and some that weren't, because I think we're looking to talk to both sets of groups tonight. So excited to get rolling.
I was about to ask you if you talked to any folks at the show who are listeners, and one just jumped into the chat who I think you got to meet and I didn't have a chance to meet. Fresh Prince of Sports Cards. I know that's one who he told me he caught up with you. So what's going on, Fresh Prince?
Yeah, that was cool. He had the best t-shirt collection at the show. He had Negro League stars depicted on cards that they would have been on had they been in the majors at the time, which was a really, really neat concept. I can't remember exactly what they were, but just to give an example, I know we're going to talk some Sport Kings tonight. So like a Josh Gibson Sport Kings card on a t-shirt, which is really cool.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. If only, that would be amazing. And then another buddy, Tony TJ, is online, is questioning whether we have listeners or groupies. Tony, I guess we'll call you a groupie. Maybe you're the first.
Everyone else a reluctant listener, right?
Yeah, listeners and then one groupie. Mudville, good to see you. All right, so I'm just gonna hit really quickly what we hope to accomplish in the episode. The highlight, as it usually is. Oh, look at this! I'm previewing your Griffey pickup. We're just going to hide that and pretend we didn't show it because that's for later. But I think the bulk of the episode is Nate and I sharing some of the cards that we bought at the show. I'm usually, I refer to my collecting style as spaz, which like just completely unrestrained and almost zero curation whatsoever. Nate is pretty focused and restrained, but I think Nate, you went a little, like, I'm not going to say spaz, but you bought more maybe this year than I've seen you buy at the show. Do you agree with that?
I do for sure. I think in terms of pickups, and we talked about it in our last episode, kind of like, what our strategies would be going in and stuff. And I try to stay pretty chill with my expectations about what I'm going to get. And I've certainly always picked up at least, a good solid handful of cards, but I think I managed to get my best haul I've ever gotten into National this year.
I'm pretty excited for you to share. There were some things I didn't even know you bought. So that's going to be, we'll call it the meat of the episode. First, kind of like Nate just did, we're going to reflect a little bit on high level impressions and just, harken back to the last episode. We shared a little bit of what we expected, where we thought we might be able to find value, what our plan was for the event. So I just kind of want to follow up and see, was it what we thought it would be? And then we'll hit a couple kind of social highlights from the event. One of the most fun things, this was my 5th in a row, Nate's 6th in a row. So we have a lot of buddies there. And I just want to share a few quick hitter stories of some of the social side of this. And then we'll get into just some experiences and throughout the event of buying and selling, diving into some of the deals and deal making and what our impressions were. Dare I say I have at least one hot take that I'll offer in that part. I kind of thought through, and I try not to be too much into the hot takes, but I have one that we'll see if the chat agrees might be a little bit hot, and we'll see if Nate does as well. And then at that point, we'll just start going back and forth and showing what we picked up until we run out of time. So is that good for you, Nate, or did I miss anything?
No, I think that's it, man. Sounds good.
All right, you start. Overall impressions, and how is it the same or different as we kind of talked about in the last episode?
Yeah. Well, we probably made this clear last time too, but just to warn people, I'm a pretty unapologetic fanboy for the National, so it's going to be like overwhelmingly positive, and I think you tend to be in that boat too. So those looking for a balanced discussion or a healthy dose of negativity probably aren't going to find too much of that here tonight. But
Here.
yeah, it was awesome, man. Just like it always is. The market, we talked a decent bit about the market on our last episode. So to hit that, I mean, it's kind of just like I would expect. Obviously everything is up. Obviously everyone uses comps as their baseline. And obviously the vast majority of the cards at the show are overpriced and, are not going to be attainable if you want to pay a fair price. So I think all those dynamics remain intact. Prices are up, obviously, significantly from last year. The market's up significantly from last year. In terms of, kind of overall activity that I saw, I'd say similar to prior years. I wouldn't say people were dropping massive stacks of cash on tables in ways that I hadn't seen in the past. But I also wouldn't say that I felt like I noticed that people were being particularly conservative with their acquisitions because the market's up so much. I'd say overall for me this year, I've been a little more conservative. I've bought a little less than I have the past few years. At the show, it didn't end up being that way because I, kind of got lucky or, happened to stumble on what I felt like were some pretty good buying opportunities. So I was a little more aggressive there than I have otherwise been this year. But overall, pricing, I think, again, generally it's hard at shows. You have to really work to find deals that feel comfortable to you because most of the stuff is, either museum showcases where they're showing it off and, don't really want to sell it, or just a little above that comfort zone level, even if it is a card you like. And that's after you've already spent a tremendous amount of time looking for a card that you actually like, so it's got to kind of hit that double sweet spot and it's tough to do. But from a market standpoint, I'd say those were my high level impressions. What did you think?
Yeah, I that all resonates with me. It was more consistent with my prior experiences than different. Meaning it didn't feel. Now, the whole market has gone up. So if you price your cards like I do, based on recent comps, the prices were higher than they would have been last year. But I didn't notice markups being materially different. I noticed, I think it was a little bit busier this year, particularly on Saturday. I used to notice the crowd peaked on Friday. This crowd was persistent well into Saturday, so it was busy. One thing that surprised me was the soccer market. That was, and I know we just had the World Cup, but particularly when the National is hosted in Chicago, there's a second floor to the convention center, which I believe was new last year. It was small, it was really cramped. This year they expanded it, they widened the rows, and I think there were more dealers up there. And there were several rows, they might have called it the international section, that were just soccer. And I saw a lot of young people collecting soccer cards. That was very cool. I noticed there was a vibe shift where upstairs were some of the newer dealers who probably are a little bit more online buyers and sellers, kind of the new blood, high velocity. So there are a lot of deals to be made, more modern upstairs. And then kind of the old blue bloods of the hobby, the 707 sports cards, the Tony E trades downstairs.
Yeah.
I think where we talked about pockets of value in the last episode, I did find. So I bought a lot of raw cards and I found there to be tons of value there. SGC slabs, we said, or other non-PSA slabs, there would be value. Vintage basketball was part of my buying plan. And I looked at a lot of vintage football. I didn't end up buying any vintage football. Willie Mays. So I think we were right about the market. And then what was really, really hot, Jordan was super hot. The Kobe's and LeBrons were hot. Mantle, Babe Ruth. So I think it was pretty much right what I expected in terms of the market, although baseball felt like it's moved up and is well ahead of hockey now in the hobby, I'd say.
Baseball in terms the vintage.
So I'm sorry, I misspoke. Soccer. I don't know why I was thinking soccer has jumped ahead. Yeah, baseball, I would say at the National is clearly number one, and basketball number two. But I think soccer has vaulted ahead of ice hockey, and Yeah, it's
That
getting
makes sense.
close to
Yeah.
football.
Yeah, I agree with that. And yeah, the upstairs I thought was pretty fun this year. Last year ended up being kind of a little bit of a throwaway. I mean, they're I didn't see a lot of quality stuff up there, and it was so tight that I really did not spend much time up there last year. But this year, I thought the quality of stuff was a lot better. There were some corporate sponsors up there and stuff too that had some things that you could interact with. But there were some pretty good dealers, including Ballpark Memories. I think you did a deal with them. I talked to those guys quite a bit. And they had a great show up there and saw a lot of traffic and did really well. And there were a lot of folks, like you said, it was mostly modern, and there was the international like F1 and soccer element, but there was some pretty good vintage stuff sprinkled in and around there too. So
Definitely.
yeah. But, yeah.
Also, the other thing I'll offer as a high level, how my strategy to the show differed from last year. I don't recall if I imagine I foreshadowed this a little bit last time, but I left the show with more cash than I came with, and that's because I sold several big cards at the show. So normally I'm a net buyer at the National, but because the market is so high, I went with one deal in hand. It was a prized Michael Jordan card that I've showed off on the show, 1997 Jordan Rose Zero Showcase. And I had a deal arranged with one of those dealers on the second floor before the show even started. So right on Wednesday when it opened, I found him, marched up to his table. We shook hands, we had a chat, and we consummated the deal. And then I traded a Babe Ruth card. I sold a mantle at a trade night. There was a trade night where suddenly I was wheeling and dealing, and I traded several other Jordans. One Jordan card I've been hunting for years. I grabbed, but I traded like base Jordan cards for it. So I ended up kind of either monetizing or trading enough cards that was kind of my budget for the event, and
Wow.
it felt appropriate this year, and it kind of felt fun for me. It's been a journey to learn to let go of cards.
Yeah.
And I ended up having a blast doing that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, you and I hadn't really compared notes on that too fully. I certainly had the sense that you had moved a fair bit of stuff, but it was a really similar experience for me. I ended up selling some cards and generating some value in some other ways, such that despite having quite a few pickups, I ended up, I think I spent a few thousand more. I don't know, 3,000-4,000, something like that, more than I sold or moved or traded or whatever. But it was fairly similar for me, which, like you, did not used to be the case, that I would actually go and generate a fair bit of value on the sell trade side. So it feels pretty good. And like you as well, obviously we talk a lot, so I'm sure we influence each other. But part of what I was monetizing a bit with some Jordan stuff that was up like 8 or 10x or whatever, it just feels like, man, you got to harvest at least a little bit of that right now. Like, not all of it, because maybe like in a year it'll be up 30x, but at least a little.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I'm still way long on Michael Jordan, but one of these cards, I bought it for $80 at a card show, and I traded it for like $800 of trade value. And it just didn't have that value to me. So I looked at it as an $80 card, and this dealer's looking at it like it's an $800 card.
Right.
That's a great reason to transact.
Yeah.
I turned it into a shiny refractor Jordan. So
Nice.
I like how it came out.
The other thing that I had happen on that front that was pretty cool, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but on the first night of the National, or actually the night before the National started, I had a really fortuitous, like, for me, pretty big eBay sale. And it was the Giannis card that I got signed at last year's National. I just kind of had it on eBay at a high price, and just was like, whatever, if it ends up selling, fine. If not, then that's fine too, because I'm glad to keep it and hold on to it. But it sold like right going into the Nationals, so kind of creating that sense of a little more budget, a little more stuff to work with. And it was that one of those great feelings in the hobby that we have, where I think most of us have experienced this. You list a card on eBay, OBO, and they just smash bin and like don't even send you an offer, and you're like, yeah, all right, I might have had a little room on that one, but I'll take full price too.
Totally.
Yeah. So that helped budgetarily and was really, really nice timing.
Yeah, that was such a cool card with the green color match. Good job on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know later you might share your, so you've been on a journey of getting autographs at most of these shows, and The
Yeah.
one you did this year was pretty cool too. Let's hit a few social highlights. I'll go first. Actually, I have to grab a card from the shelf. I'll be right back in 2 seconds.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
So I want to talk about Josh, our buddy, Josh Hall of Fame cards. And Josh has been someone that we've hung out with for years at the show. And we know each other's collecting journeys really deeply. He's talked about in his recovery journey some of the first cards he got that inspired him into the hobby and what it means to him. And I've told him all these stories about my origins as a kid. 2 cards in particular that made me a collector. One, Garbage Pail Kids, Atom Bomb. I've talked about it before. But the big sports one was Darryl Strawberry. And Josh knows the story of the 1983 Topps traded Darryl Strawberry card, which was my grail as a kid. I still have the one I bought for $70 with my dad in the screw down case at a card show. And on the last day of the show, before we did our box rip tradition, Josh gave me a gift that I just wanted to show on the show. And I recently on Instagram shared kind of my top 20 favorite cards in my collection, kind of based on emotional attachment. And this is an SGC 10, just a virtually flawless copy of Darryl Strawberry's first rookie card that was pulled from that traded set. It's only a pop 16. There's a lot of PSA 10s, but there's very few SGC 10s. And to me, that just kind of shows you the kind of community we have is, and you and I we've received and given gifts, and there's a lot of meaning in the hobby, but I was really touched by that. And so
Really cool.
I've had this on my shelf every second since I got home from the show and just looking at it. And I've never had a graded copy of the card before.
Yeah.
And it's just awesome to know people like Josh
Yeah.
who are super generous and who have like really deep feelings and significance that they feel attached to these cards that we collect.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that was my first social highlight.
Well, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I can dovetail off that initially here with my thoughts too. He was one of the last people that I talked to at the show. I was in line at PSA to pick up a card, and he was kind of walking by and just stood with me for like 9 hours or whatever it was to get to the front of the PSA. That was probably a half hour or something, but it was like one of the best conversations of the weekend. And that's one of the things that happens there is you're just on the floor and doing whatever, and you happen to stumble across your friends and just have these out of the blue great interactions with people. And so it's so nice. We interact all year online and primarily through Instagram, but sometimes in other ways too. And so to just have that ability to get together and share meaningfully, oftentimes very unintentionally, it just kind of happens. And so yeah, the way I think about the social elements, and kind of trying to categorize the experiences a little bit. It's kind of like the daytime stuff on the show floor is kind of one element, and then the dinners are an important element, and then the late nights. And the late nights is like the trade nights and the box rip that we do on Saturday and that stuff. And so all 3 of those, like, just really good, meaningful opportunities for connection with our buddies in the hobby. And that was one with Josh. Another one on the show floor that kind of was just sort of a neat way that kind of things will tend to transpire there. I met up with a collector named Keith from Hawaii. He's Top Shot at Cards on Instagram. He and I had talked before the show and planned to meet up. And so we were chatting there, and he pulled out signed Babe Ruth and a signed Lou Gehrig Gaudy cards. And so I was like holding those, like mesmerized by those. I don't think I'd held either of those cards signed before. So, he has an amazing collection and really enjoying talking to him. And then Jonah JD9 Cards went by, and I was like, hey, Jonah, you probably want to see these. He collects really neat and rare stuff. And so the 3 of us started talking for a while. And then somehow we started talking about Brady Hill and going to find him. And we weren't sure, for people that don't know him, he's one of the great OG vintage collectors. He at one point collected, I think I can't remember, like 34 variations of the red portrait Ty Cobb, 34 different backs. And he had all of them, like several of them are one of ones, and just like unbelievable. He's built the 14 Cracker Jack set in high grade twice. And PMG set full PM. I think PMG red. I don't think PMG green, but PMG red set he built. So just like everything.
Yeah. He had one of the signed Leaf Jackie rookies. I know at one point in time. I think there's now 5 of those.
Yeah. So we went and tracked him down. We finally, we talked to some other people and found him, and we were standing there like he's gone into like really he collects pretty similar to how we do now. I mean, he has some higher grade stuff certainly too, but his showcase was full of like low to mid grade, super high eye appeal stuff. And he values it. He values it like we do, just like I would if I was putting it out. Like it had some substantial price tags on the stuff, but we ended up talking to him for a while, and my son had a great interaction with Brady 4 years ago at the Atlantic City show. And I mentioned it to Brady, and he was like, "Oh, you're his dad." And like, he immediately remembered it. He was like, he said that was the last time he had set up at the show. And that was one of the great highlights of that show for him. And he told his wife about it and all this stuff. And then he was like, "Is your son here? Like, bring him over." And he wanted to recreate the picture that they had taken together in 2022, like 4 years later. So we did that. And then, he like sent that, I think, to his family and posted it online. And we had this like really cool interaction and reconnection after 4 years. So that all ended up just like with one conversation, and then walking the floor with a few people and several interactions. And, that's just kind of how things can evolve into a really cool hour on the show floor that doesn't even really involve like any attempts at transacting, but is, a lot of fun from a hobby engagement standpoint.
Totally. Brady's such a good guy. That's really neat. Check out Nate's Instagram to see the picture of Luke 4 years ago with Brady, and then today. My second social story I wanted to share also happened on the floor. Over the past couple of years, I've met a lot of collectors, modern collectors on Instagram who collect rare. It started with Eddie George. For me, it's Ohio State players who became stars in the NFL, and they have a lot of cool inserts from the 90s. And this guy, his Instagram handle is 740 Smith cards. 740 is one of the area codes in Ohio that only an Ohioan would know that. So his name is Justin. And over the years, we've just, it starts by just liking each other's posts and commenting, like nothing expected in return. Like, man, that is an awesome Orlando Pace card, and you go on your way. And we kind of became friends. Eventually, he invited me into a chat of Eddie George collectors. But we found out we were both from that chat. I think we were the two that were at the show. And he just messaged me. He said, "Hey, I'd love to meet up in person. We'd never met. My kids were there." And so he came over, and I introduced him to my kids. He was asking them questions about what they're collecting. We showed off a few things we picked up. And when I went to introduce Justin to my kids, I said, "Now I said, "You're from Ohio, right? Tell me what part?" And he mentioned a town, a city in Southern Ohio. And I said, "No way. My dad is from a little town close to there." And I mentioned the name of the town, very small town. And he just kind of, his eyes widened, and he's like, "No way. That's actually where I live. This might be a town of like 500 people."
Wow.
And then suddenly it goes from, we're talking about trading cards, but I'm explaining. He's like, what are your grandparents' names? Both of my grandparents are buried there in the town cemetery. And I'm telling him, I'm like, it's the second house from the end of the road across from the water tower where they live. And then we end up sharing like little maps and screenshots. And so I'm asking him if this restaurant or that restaurant is still in business. So we just made this really cool connection going way deep into our roots, but we're also talking about cards. Justin collects super rare stuff. He posted a 1-of-1 Griffey card that he got at the show, for example. You should check out his show if you want to see a modern collector who just has a really high quality, fascinating, and unique collection. But it was just so great to finally meet in person. And I had no doubt that we would kick it off, but it just shows you end up having more in connection with people than you might think.
Wow, that's amazing. To already kind of share that connection and then have it even be that much deeper than you had any idea it would be.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So yeah, man, I think we're going to do couple more stories a little later on. I think I'm pretty good on that. I'll just say, I think I have developed kind of this, I don't know if strategy is too strong of a word, but inclination over the years of like trying to meet up with some people on the floor, having the kind of interactions I described before, doing like some small group dinners, maybe like 4, 6, 8, 10 people, and trying to really see and, have an opportunity to have some good interactions with folks that way. And then a lot of times meeting kind of random people at trade nights. I feel like, that's a really good opportunity to like just kind of discover people have cards out and you have cards out and you're coming around and just kind of interacting with a lot of strangers there, I think more so than you have the opportunity to do in the other settings. So that combination of, kind of three main different ways to connect with people has kind of become how I think about, I think there are probably 30 or 40 people each year that I really want to make sure to have, a meaningful conversation with and at least an opportunity to spend some good time with, and try to do that like on the floor and or at a dinner, and then hope to make, some cool new experiences and friends, in those places, but also a lot of times at the trade nights. And that was how it ended up playing out again this year pretty well.
So yeah, I totally agree with that. And I'm glad over time you and Luke that talked me into being a enthusiastic participant in the trade nights. Early on, I wasn't sure about them. They also used to be harder to get into. I think the logistics were better this year.
Yeah, agreed.
But we did meet a lot of cool people and do some fun deals at the trade nights.
For sure. Yeah. It's the energy there is great. And seeing all the kids there and just, it's kind of like all aspects of the hobby kind of thrown together in a way where people are really excited. And another kind of key social element for me this year was that I had one of my best friends from college there, and you got a chance to meet him. And he was there with his 11-year-old son. And not only was it their first national, it was their first card show. So it was kind of crazy to start with that. But yeah, they did, and they loved it. And their favorite part was trade night. The little guy loved going there and having a chance to wheel and deal. And like, because with the dealers, it can be a little intimidating, and that they're a lot of times going to lowball you if you're trying to sell them stuff, and it's hard to negotiate. But there's this parity on the the trade night floor where everyone's kind of equal. Everyone's there because they love cards. Everyone's there to do deals. No one kind of goes in with the kind of predetermined upper hand in the transaction or the interaction or whatever. And so I continue to just to really love that element of it. And I know a lot of vintage people tend to not go, and I see sometimes, there are no vintage cards there, but there are. Like, I think you can find good cards, and I found a couple of my favorite pickups at trade nights this year, vintage cards. So I'd encourage people who are otherwise skeptical of it to check it out. That said, talking about the social element, it gets to be a lot from an energy standpoint, because it's round the clock, and it can be, kind of overwhelming at times, especially if you're trying to manage other obligations that actually do continue to exist outside the show.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, if you need to rest or sleep or something, I guess you can't do it all, but try to, I'd say for folks, try to check out some trade nights when you can.
I this year, I think I did a little bit better of a job pacing myself, because after I did some big deals during the day, when I felt like the term I used was starting to go on tilt, if I was a little on, I would leave and just walk back to my hotel. It only took 12 minutes to walk there and just rest, maybe get a snack, like 30 minutes, get off my feet and then go back. Right. Conserve energy a bit for the show.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
All right, let's dive into some of the buying, selling, trading experiences. I'm thinking about hitting you with my hot take right now and get your thoughts on it.
Let's do it.
The hot take is this, and I'm reacting to a lot of the content that I saw after the national, ranging from mildly whining about high prices to referring to them as disrespectful to just all out ranting. Yeah, I shared earlier that I didn't think the markups were meaningfully different than any year, but my hot take is just simply that high prices are not a problem at the national, period. Not a problem. And I'm going to break it down into, to me,
that is a hot take. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
The National Sports Card Convention is three things at one, and I'm going to go through each of the three. I'll try not to be too long-winded and explain why high prices are not a problem. First, it's a museum. If you walked by the, I think it was the Memory Lane booth, you saw some museum worthy cards worth millions of dollars, PSA 9 Jackie rookies, things like this. And it's just a delight to stop and take a photograph and stare and enjoy it. It doesn't matter if those cards are priced at $10 million or $1 million or $500,000. Like it's just a museum. And there are certain collectors who are, in the billionaire class who can participate in those. But many of us that's part of the fun of going is you see what you can see, and it's really cool. So that part of it for me, of course, prices are out the door, and I just totally enjoy it. Then there's two other things happening to me in parallel, and I want to talk about why high prices are not a problem for each one. Most of us think about this next one, which is this is a viable market for the buying and selling of assets. And we go and we walk through and we look for transactable assets, and we look for opportunities to sell as well. And then there's what I would call, you can either call it the flea market or you can call it the old antique store. And if I imagine I'm in Cape Cod and I'm going into an old antique store, or I'm in Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm going out to a flea market, and I'm nervous, and somebody says, "Oh, don't worry about it. Just negotiate a little bit, but like find things that you think are pretty that you like, and offer them a little bit less than the price and enjoy it." And there's a lot of what I do at the show that's in that latter category. I'm going to show a couple things. Some of these I buy for my kids. This is a Royal Bangles Little Cigars, Men of History. Sorry, this is what it says. It's King George III. I don't even know what year this was made. It was stickered at $20. I didn't check comps. Now I got there was another card. It's a non-sports card that is a semaphore signals card, stickered at $6.
Wait, Jonathan, before you move on, you and I didn't share this, but Royal Bengals, William Shakespeare.
Oh, William Shakespeare. And by the way, mine's for Lucia. Maybe nice. Yours is free. I got some of these pugilists these are in an Allen and Ginter set. The backs are destroyed. I didn't check comps. I got some Sea Raiders raw cards. A lot of these are stickered at $6, $2, $20. You look through them, you fall in love with some items. You have a nice conversation with the guy behind the desk, and you offer him some reasonable value, and he usually says that's great. And you hand him your $38, and you leave with some cool trinkets from the, like I said, from the antique store or from the flea market. And it's a delightful experience. And anytime you're walking through the flea market, in some country where you are, you're not thinking about winning. You're not worried about value. You're making memories and buying things that you enjoy, right? And so, in that part of the hobby for me, and that part of the experience, do prices matter? No, they tend to be pretty reasonable, and comps aren't anything about it. The hotter take is in the buying and selling of assets. And so how many transactions in that class do you think a reasonable collector can consummate in 5 days at the National? Like how many transactions do you think you made this year?
Of like not the flea market, but the level up, like real.
Yeah, the level up of assets
where you're really comping the card hard and you care about the price. And yeah.
Well, those are two very different questions. How many I make at a show and how many can you make? Because how many can you make? It's probably hundreds. How many do I tend to make? 5 to 9. I would say at the average National.
I think you're a strong collector. Maybe 10. I think this year I did about 25 transactions, but I would bet 5 of them were in kind of the flea market category. I might have done 20. Like some people who are really heavy, maybe you could pull off 50. But I thought about it, and I don't know how many tables there are. I would imagine there's 2,000 tables at the show, maybe 250 slabs a dealer. I don't know. I started doing some math of just imagining how many slabs in this asset class are at the show. And it's got to be at least 500,000, right? And so I'm walking through an environment in which it might be 1 million, it might be 250,000, I don't know, but it's a huge volume of inventory of these assets around me. And I'm looking for the 10 to 20 deals I'm going to do. And so the exercise of figuring out where to put your time and attention is one, mostly to me, the behavior that's going off as you're walking through and looking at showcases is one where you need to eliminate the vast majority of cards. That is what our process is when we eliminate it. And if you're looking for a 1954 Topps Al Kaline, there's 500 of them. Which one do you buy? I find it quite helpful to know the value of the card and just look through, and you very quickly can say like, oh, nope, that one looked nice, but he's got it marked at $3,000. Move on. There's zero reason to me to have any sort of anger towards the guy who's got it priced at $3,000. He just doesn't want to sell it. Like I stickered cards at values I didn't want to sell at trade night.
Yeah.
So to me, it's part of the process we go through of trying to find the card, trying to find one you like, looking as the price within reason. And it's this really interesting elimination game where every once in a while you find one that sifts through all the filters and you're like, oh, can I see that card? And then you might be making an offer. I think that every card I bought that I would put in this asset class, I paid a reasonable amount based on comps, and likely less than I would have paid if I was paying tax and shipping on it. So I think I came away with good deals, and I bought, like I said, maybe 20 transactions. And so for me, if every single card were properly priced, I don't even know how I would go about it. So that to me is part of the game. And if you get good at going through this process, and the people's prices are just telling you if they really want to sell or if they're not a reasonable transactor, and that's helpful information to me. And I find that there's more than enough inventory that you can come away, as long as you're not dead set on something that's super rare. And then the one person that has it, is just so high that you get upset about it. But at least the way I connect or collect, it's not a problem. There it is. That's my hot take.
I love it. Challenging conventional wisdom on that one, for sure. And I can't say that I disagree with you. I mean, it's a really good perspective. I mean, the other reason I always think that the criticism of high prices is a little overblown is like, those cards are those dealers' cards. They can charge what they want to. And I love my cards too. If I was like, and most of those people are collectors and serious longtime collectors, and they, to varying degrees, really don't want to part with their cards, and they're fine bringing their cards home. And that's part of what's great about the hobby. Even the people that are selling the stuff really love it. I mean, you have people that just flip, that don't have a PC, that aren't really collectors. And those are the people that tend to probably do more volume. But there are a ton of folks that are dealers / collectors, and
100%.
They love them. They love them like we love them. And if I was going to sell my cards, I wouldn't part with them easily either. You would have to really want that card to pry it out of my hands. And everyone who's in here and listens to this and does what we do loves their cards too. And none of us want to part with them easily.
I'll share one acquisition story of a deal. This is a Sean Springs. Sean Springs was a star cornerback for the Seattle Seahawks and Ohio State. And this is his 1999 PMG. It's serial numbered 1 out of 50. And actually, Justin, who I referenced earlier, told me, he said, I saw the 99 Springs in a showcase. He said it was stickered at $1,000. He told me vaguely where it was. And when I found the dealer, it was a guy from Ohio. And I said, wow, it's hard to comp. It's a pop 3. There's only 3 out of the 50 that are the whereabouts are known. And I said, gosh, it's hard. That's a lot for it. And I hit him with an opening offer of $700. And what he said just resonated with me. He was like, gosh, for $700, I think I'd rather buy the card. He wants the card for $700. And we ended up picking a number in the middle, and he let me walk away with it. And I think it was fun for him to know that I was a collector, and I went to Ohio State, and I was, so we had a great experience. But he very much showed who he was when he said that. He's like, nah, for that price, I'm buying it. And that's exactly how we feel about our card.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, the other really key element for me with the buying in particular is just,
now having an understanding of my expectations going in. And for my first couple nationals, I did probably, I had what for me were two well-defined of lists of what I was looking for. And, I've found that that's a difficult thing to do there for me, at least. And I also maybe put a little too much pressure on myself at the first couple to feel like I had to get some stuff. I have to get a big acquisition. Other people are getting stuff and showing their stuff, and there's that, you can get a little competitive tension. You're at dinner and you all pull out your backpacks or cases or whatever. Oh, what'd you pick up? Show me your pickups, and so you don't want to be like, well, I haven't gotten anything yet, so you kind of can get pulled into that a little bit. But for me, it's like, I try to resist that because I don't want to buy cards that I don't really love, and I don't want to overpay for cards. And so I've gotten to a point where I feel like I can be quite comfortable going to the show and just having a few of those sort of flea market level pickups. You're always going to have some of those. Those are easy. There's so much cool stuff there. If you really are into it, you're going to find some of those. Does it feel better and more fun to have some big pickups too? Yeah, it does. I mean, it's nice when it works out, but I'm willing now to let it wash over me. I'm willing to let the national come to me. I don't have high requirements and expectations. I don't have to get 3 grails there and, do a certain, because it'll be phenomenal either way. If I go home with a handful of small cards and a big bundle of awesome experiences and conversations, it still will have been a great show.
I imagine most people, like Fresh Prince here, I'm sharing the comment, says he did feel a little pressure to make a big purchase because it was the first national.
Yeah.
My first national, I remember the anxiety of, I have to find a Willie Mays rookie card.
Yeah.
And
right.
It was intense. I pulled it off, but the next year I went back and I said, I cannot have that kind of pressure on myself. And I think every subsequent year, my anxiety levels have been lower. This was my favorite year in part because, just like you said, I just let it wash over me and I knew I'd have fun. I made some purchases that have been on my list for a long time, and I bought some impulsive things that I wasn't even looking for that I loved. And
nice.
So I think it's a journey that we've both gone on.
Yeah. And the one other point I'll make about it too is I've come to really enjoy it's a counterbalance for me to how I otherwise typically hobby throughout the year, which is very meticulously and in a, kind of strategic, planned way. We watch the auctions. REA is up now. We create our watch lists. We see what we love there. Hey, I've got a watch list now of 50 cards. Here's 5 I might bid on seriously. I watch them for a couple weeks. I think about it a lot. How will it fit in my collection? Is it the perfect example? What's the strategy for what am I going to, if I bid on this one, and so there's all this like thought and planning and everything. And the countermeasure at the national is that's not how I approach any day there. I go and I look for opportunities, and the opportunities for me are what's a really beautiful special card that would have a good place in my collection that I can find at a fair price. And I never know what that's going to be. I at any given time, there's a lot of cards that would fit really well into my collection. And so I'm just kind of trying to patiently wait to stumble on the opportunities that present themselves. And I've found it to become a really fun way to kind of counterbalance the rest of the way that I hobby.
Yeah, I felt that way more this year too. And one of my pickups that I'll share when we get into it is I kind of said, hey, I was taking what the defense gave me. If you're looking for beautiful cards that fit a bunch of requirements, but then you also look at just the opportunity where like, wow, that's stickered at a place where I'm super comfortable. Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, right.
I did some of that this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to dive in, get into the show and tell?
Yeah, that sounds good. Right. We're talking about pickups. We might as well segue to that. I think we're maybe going to do a couple more stories, but maybe we hit those after we show the cards. You want to do that?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, I know. I want to hear your kind of closing story after we show the cards.
Yeah. Okay. I think talked about maybe doing it on like a day by day basis. So, my first pickup was the 51 Burke Ross Jesse Owens in a PSA 4, which I think you have an image of as well. But
it's showing the wrong card there. I'm trying to show you the finish. Here, I gotta for some reason it's showing your Griffey here.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, so I had no idea I wanted this card, right? Like I've seen it before a few times, but I've never held it in hand, and I stumbled across it at a show, and it was at a table there, and is really nicely centered, really nicely registered, just a great image, beautiful color. It was $70. I think he either 60 or $70. He had it marked at I think maybe he had it marked at 80 and I paid 70, or marked at 70. And I was like, I didn't even really comp it. Like I maybe looked for a moment and it seemed about right. So I was like, all right, yeah, that seems cool. I ended up comping it later. It ended up being a really good buy. I had no idea, but that's kind of the sub $100, kind of buy that you can just stumble on there. And it just, the cards, and the guy loved the card, and I was looking at it and he really appreciated that I was appreciating it. So that was a fun first pickup. The next one was so these were on Tuesday. I go and help out with a booth there, and setting up and stuff, and to get to look around a little bit early. And so I had a couple pickups, not a lot on Tuesday, but another one was the Soul of the Game Griffey from 99 Skybox and a PSA 7. So this one, I've come to kind of like these Soul of the Games. I have a Kobe. I was going to get an MJ, but since I started looking at the MJ, it's up like 4,000% or whatever. So I'm not going to get the MJ. So I found this Griffey in a 7, and it was marked for $235. And so I comped it briefly, and a 7 hadn't sold in forever, but they've gone up a lot. And I said, would you do 200? And the guy went and talked to his partner, and he was like, no, we won't actually. We just looked, and the last raw did like 500 or something. And he was like, honestly, if you don't buy it for the stickered price, 235, we're just going to take it down and, probably either crack it or put a new price on it. So I was like, all right, I'll take it. And I just saw, I think it was yesterday, a 7 sold for like 600 or whatever. So, there's value to be had. Like,
Yeah,
you can
totally.
find it.
Great looking card.
Thanks, man. Yeah. It's just the aesthetics on the, Griffey in the swing, just a lot of great color. And so it's kind of cool 90 set. And then my last one from the first day was a box of 1985 Fleer baseball, a wax box. And I've been doing a little project where I've been collecting some 80s junk wax unopened boxes. It's kind of like a part of a home display and a little 80s collection. So this was a fun one. This was one of the last ones I needed. I kind of made a list when I started doing this of boxes that I wanted to get. And the 85 Fleer is one that has eluded me. Again, a good price. I paid $600 for this. The last couple sales on eBay before that had been $800 and $900. So to your point, like, prices aren't not always a problem there.
Hey, thanks for joining, David Chase. He's reprimanding us for starting without him, but you can catch up on the YouTube. All right, I'm going to hit 3 things too that I bought early in the show. I don't know if they were all the first day. And these are all, you're going to get a little sneak peek of my Instagram posts before I post them. So what I'm showing here is a trio of 1938 Gaudi. This is the cars with like the cartoonish big heads. They call the Heads Up series. You've got Joe DiMaggio in a PSA 6, and then you've got Hank Greenberg and Jimmy Fox in a PSA 2. I went to the show looking for these cards, and after I sold my Michael Jordan card, I marched over to Ash's booth with the cash that I had just shoved into my backpack, and very quickly gave it to Ash along with my second copy, my old copy of the green Gaudi Ruth I talked about in the last episode. And I turned it into that much higher grade than I thought I was looking for, Joe DiMaggio card. That was a fun moment. Lucia was with me to kind of advise me on the deal. So that was when the first person who listens to Rough Cuts recognized my voice and came over. So we were talking to a listener of the show while I was in the middle of this deal for this PSA 6. There were so few of this card with the comics. All 3 of these have the comics. They're the higher numbered variants, which are hard to find. And so I was kind of pinching myself like, oh my gosh, I'm buying this card that's worth more than my car. But I justified it because my cost basis in that Michael Jordan card was really low. And so I had just kind of, to me, it was like, okay, I'm taking that cost basis. I know I just briefly turned it into cash, but now I kind of putting it into this Joe DiMaggio, and my cost basis in the green Gaudi Ruth was lower too. So it was like a trade up story to me. And then I talk a lot about, I like cards with company, I like them in some context where it's not just a card, but it's part of a little sub PC. And so I was hoping to find a few others. And from I believe the same dealer that you bought a card from that you're going to show here, I picked up the Greenberg and the Fox. So it's a cool trio. I might post this soon after the show to my Instagram page to show it off.
Unbelievable. Yeah, man, I could not believe when you pulled that Joe D out of your case after you picked that thing up, man. And a 6. You have you'll do that every once in a while. You'll go rogue and just go like, I mean, for that card, I'm gonna just say high grade. Like that is a high grade.
Yeah.
That's not how we normally do things around here, Jonathan. You went beast mode on that one.
I did go. I was determined.
Yeah. And I see why, like and one of the things is like, there's more and more pressure on the low grade, high eye appeal stuff. And some of those gaps are starting to narrow.
Yeah.
And I think in our minds sometimes, like, as we look for the low grade, high eye appeal stuff for long enough, and then we see what we really want, but it's in a higher grade and it's like a little more, but not like exponentially more.
Yeah.
It starts to maybe kind of make sense a little more than it did 3 years ago when we could have gotten a 2 that looked like that for a 15% premium instead of what would now be 115% premium over. So, right. So it's kind of, there's this compression that's happening that's making that card more appealing than it would have been a couple of years ago.
That's definitely a part of it. And by the way, Mike Petty, I also, when I kind of got back into the hobby 5 years ago, I didn't like that Joe DiMaggio back when it was affordable. And then somehow, I don't know if it was influencers or who influenced me, but somehow I came to a point where I really needed it. So that was a big deal. The other 2 deals I'm going to show from kind of the first day show how I also love buying small cards. I talked about on the last episode of wanting to find a Katie Ledecky card. It was hard. There was one dealer that I had all female athletes, and we had to go through dollar bins, but I found a Katie Ledecky refractor in a dollar bin. Also found from that same one, and my wife loves looking for female athletes like Olympians. A Lindsey Vaughn, this one's numbered out of 199. That was in the dollar bin. A Chloe Kim refractor. So a lot of the athletes that we have been cheering on at the previous Olympics. Gabby Thomas. My Juliana picked this one up, even though she knows I have a little bit of a crush on her. She's not only a dominant athlete, but she's eye candy. I gotta admit it. So Gabby Thomas for the binder. I think she might have gone to my alma mater as well. So I'm allowed to be a fan.
No,
and then the other one, this was a fun little pairing. When I was a kid, my second favorite basketball player was Reggie Miller after Michael Jordan. And I found this Shooting Stars refractor. I think I bought it for $100. It was stickered at 120. It was good value. And then at one of the tables that I was just going through dollar boxes of female athletes, I found this Cheryl Miller. This is a 1-of-1, ladies and gentlemen. Bought it for $10. So I just thought it was this really fun brother-sister pair of Reggie Miller, Cheryl Miller, she was really the biggest female basketball superstar before the WNBA was a thing. And I thought that was a fun pairing to pick up. So, for $110, I got this cool pair of cards that I wasn't necessarily looking for, but I thought it was good value. And I'll post that one to the Instagram page soon too. So those were 3 early pickups, I think, from the first 2 days of the show.
Yeah. Great stuff. Great stuff. Some really fun stuff and just a massive grail. I like what Mike Petty said here. By the time you like it, you can't afford it. Buy what you don't like is the best strategy to follow when you start out. Like I'm the same as you. Like I didn't like
that's a hot take.
It is. I know it's good. And then let's see. You'll like Double D Vintage's comment that the Joe D with cartoons is the second greatest baseball card ever created. You might be more inclined to agree with that than you were a week or two ago. And then David Chase said, is the Feller on your radar or is the 38 flight complete? And that leads to my next pickup. which
Yeah.
was the 38 feller. And so I found it in a 1.5. It was a brand new cert and kind of looked exactly like what I was looking for. Quite clean. I don't have a great image of it here, but it's up with captions. Seems like, I don't know. I feel like the vast majority of people I talk to at least have a real preference for with captions, because it's kind of like if you're gonna go with this silly goofy design, you kind of got to go all in, right? It's just like coming around to the fun whimsy of the design is, I think, kind of, what happens to some of us, what has happened to some of us over time. And the other interesting thing about the key cards in this set, like I hear a lot of my collector friends talking about them over the last 6 to 12 months. It's like things can get hot at a certain time, right? And even with pre-war cards, all of a sudden, like, things will take it. You're like, Joe DiMaggio can't hit any more home runs. Bob Feller can't strike anyone else out. But all of a sudden, like, these cards will just, these little segments will catch fire and people will start talking about it and realizing they're actually cooler than we thought they were. So I've been hearing a lot of chatter about this set. You and I both, I think, have been caught up in that. I was happy to find this feller in a low grade with high.
And you got that before I got any of my 3. I just want to show you something cool. So my Jimmy Fox, and the answer to the question is I'd love a feller too, but I feel like I half got one because Nate has it. You probably can't see it, but the serial number on my Fox is 1 higher than the serial number on your feller, which means these two were in fact back to back in the same PSA submission.
Yeah,
It must have been the same
cool.
dealer.
That's right.
And you got the feller and I got the Fox. So,
that's awesome.
It's meant to be.
That dealer was really cool too. I don't know if you got to chat with him at all. It was kind of happenstance whether you'd actually get someone's attention or not, but he was fun. And I think this feller was available because he has the full set and he had upgraded his, I guess, and he otherwise had this in there, even though it's a nice cert, but yeah. So that was the story you told me.
I talked to his wife. His wife kind of, she ran, I made an offer. She ran it by him and he said, yeah, that's good. And then,
nice. Yeah, cool. So the next one for me was my, and this was on Wednesday, my T227 Jack Johnson, the Series of Champions, pugilist card, which, I don't do a ton on the boxing side, but a few kind of, key guys, iconic fighters, iconic cards, I do go for, and I have a couple Jack Johnsons. This is the one that I've really wanted for the last couple years. It's pretty rare. I want to say the PSA pop is maybe 60 or 70. The T227 is a pretty cool set. There are 4 baseball guys in there: Cobb, Marquard, Home Run Baker, and I think Chief Bender. And just beautiful cards. You didn't often get full size tobacco cards. I think this set's from 1912 and the color's unbelievable. Really hard to find them in nice condition because they were distributed loosely in a tobacco pack. There's Honest Long Cut and there's one other back, which I can't think of right now. But yeah, they were loose and, so a lot of them are in really, really rough shape. And glad to get this one again from a dealer that was a collector that has this full set and was making this one available too. So, to the point we discussed initially, there's a lot of guys out there that really, really know the stuff they're selling because they collect it and have done so for a long time.
It's such a good looking card, by the way. I don't know if I've ever seen it, but you're right. The T227 has such good artwork, and I love the big size of the cards. That's a beauty. You did not go looking for that one, right? That was like just jumped up and punched you in the face, or what?
Good pun. I didn't really go looking for anything. Have I wanted this card for a while? Yes, I definitely have. And I've looked at them at shows in the past. And in fact, I've looked at them from this particular dealer in the past and just haven't quite gotten there. Mm-hmm. But this one really looked nice. This wasn't value. This was a card that I really wanted. I didn't stumble across and was like, oh, wow, that's a really good buy. It was like, no, I've wanted this. This is the right example. I'm willing to pay full freight for it. Yeah, in person. So yeah, it was one I wanted.
Love it.
Yeah, thanks, man. And then last Wednesday pickup was the Sport Kings Thorpe that I got. And this is definitely not a card I was looking for, because about 6 months ago, I finally found the copy that's my forever copy, or at least I thought it was. And I never buy like doubles of a big card just to have doubles. But over the course of looking for this card and this is an SGC3, Sport Kings Jim Thorpe, for folks that are listening but not watching. And I saw it, Tony E-Trade had it, just, I thought, phenomenal eye appeal. It's like perfectly centered. There are no surface flaws. The registration is really good. The color's great. And over the course of looking for the card for a few years, sometimes what'll happen to me is like, I'll kind of get priced out of it and I'll say, all right, I'm just not ever going to have that card. But this one, as it kept going up, I just kept loving more and more. And so now it's like one of my favorite cards in the hobby, and having this other just like really, really nice one in hand, I just couldn't let it go. And so, those that know Tony know that he knows what he has. So it certainly was not inexpensive, and had to pay up for it. And I'm not even sure what I'm going to do with two of them. I really don't know. For right now, I like having them, and I'll probably keep them for a little while. At some point, we'll probably make one of them available. I'm not sure when, and I'm not sure which one, but it's one of my favorite cards, and I'm glad to have two for now.
I think it shows you that when you go on a really long quest for the right card, you get to know it, you get to know the market really deeply, and you get to know what exceptional looks like. And then even after you find it, you still have that lens. And sometimes you're like, I can't walk past it. It's such a great looking card.
Nice. Thanks, man.
All right. That's a good segue to one I'll show, because you and I challenge anyone to Google or ask Claude or your Chat GPT, who's just, don't restrict it by gender, but just who were the top 5, or who were the top few greatest all around athletes of all time. There's 3 names I almost guarantee will come up. One is Jim Thorpe. The second is Bo Jackson. And the third is a card I'm going to pull up an image of here. Babe Didrikson. And if you don't know her story, I know we've talked about her a little bit on the show before. But she ranged from an Olympian in a number of different sports, went on to be a pro golfer, a track athlete. And this card, when I first learned her story, I tracked down an SGC1 years ago. And then I saw this copy. Actually, Ballpark Memories had 2 copies. Mm-hmm. And he had a SGC3 and a 2.5. And I just thought this one looked perfect. I mean, the back is pretty darn clean. And I just thought, like, wow, that's the upgrade I've wanted. So I have 2 copies also of a Sport Kings from 1933. I traded a Jordan card I didn't even really like that had gone way up in value. I traded for half the value. And now I have 2, and I just want to keep them both right now. I love having the 2 cards. It's fun having kind of a version that looks like a kid owned it, and might have handled it a bunch and played with it a little bit. And then one that looks like, somebody just kept it in really good condition in a binder or something. I'd wanted an upgrade for years, but it was fun. Kind of the day after you picked up a second Jim Thorpe, I was like, I got a second Babe Didrikson. So I'm enjoying those.
It's interesting. I don't know how much we influence each other or how much we just like are aligned in the way that we collect or what, but the number of echoes between like what we did is pretty remarkable. And I didn't realize all of them until we're on here sharing our cards. But even with this card, it's kind of, I wonder if I influenced you a little bit, because I just posted a gushing homage to this card on my Instagram story, or on my Instagram post like a week before the National. And it's one that, I just love. But if I did, it's only because you initially influenced me. You were one of the influences for me to get that card. So
totally.
Yeah. Now I guess I need to get another one, and like maybe we can just buy up the whole population.
It's either a virtuous or a vicious cycle. You be the judge. But so that's one. I'll show another pair. This is the one I referenced where I was, quote, taking what the defense gave me. The Bill Russell 1961 Fleer card has been on my list forever. your son Luke has dangled multiple gorgeous copies in front of me, and I'm like, gosh, when can I ever find one? And you just keep looking. It's hard to find ones with nice color and good centering. And then the Bob Cousy here. So I'm showing both the Bill Russell bright blue background and the Bob Cousy with the yellow background. And a PSA. The Russell is a 2, the Cousy is a 6. It was one dealer that just I could tell without even going into the comps right when I walked by, like, oh, whoa, those are reasonable and they look nice. Neither is perfectly centered, but they're good enough for me. And they're both just pretty spot on left, right, maybe a little off top, bottom. And I made an offer pretty quickly for the pair that they went and they looked and I said, oh yeah, that's fair. And I did the deal. And, I already have the values of these higher than I paid on my spreadsheet. And I've been looking for that Russell card forever.
I know you have.
I have the big rookies from the set. Bill Russell only had 3 playing days cards from the big issue, Topps or Fleer, 2 from 61 Fleer, this and the in action, and then his rookie card. So I didn't have a proper Bill Russell card until I bought this. And that was one where, so I was looking for one. I wasn't really looking for the other, but it was a package deal and it was a fun pickup.
Man, those are really nice. Yeah, you said you were able to capitalize on, finding some basketball value. I was looking and I wasn't able. I struggled. I saw a couple really nice cards, but, like a couple really nice Wilt rookies, for example, but just like astronomically priced. Like it's so hard to find eye appeal with some of the vintage basketball stuff. And when people have it, like, it's really tough now. So it's cool that you were able to find a couple that were actually reasonably priced. Cause I did kind of have that in mind, like, even potentially kind of wearing a little bit of an investor hat, which I don't normally do, but I just feel so strongly that the vintage basketball stuff is overlooked right now that I'd like to get some, but I just I don't think I got any.
That's how I felt about vintage football, by the way. I looked at a lot of Jim Browns. I just couldn't find the right rookie. I would have paid way up if I found a nice one, but centered and well registered, hard to do. I almost bought a few second, third, fourth year Jim Browns, but didn't pull the trigger on any, although I felt like they were priced right.
Yeah. Nice. All right, man. So yeah, my Friday stuff started out. I got these 2 cards signed by Hakeem, my son, and I. We do a little bit of, as you alluded to before, autograph signing each year. So this is the 86 Fleer rookie and the 86 Fleer rookie sticker, and they're each signed with the Dream inscription on them. So these are cards that I pulled from. I opened one box of 86 Fleer when I was a kid that I got at a flea market for like $18, and I still have all the cards. Wow. And I've gotten a few of them signed now and stuff. So I love to try to do that at the show when I can bring cards that I opened as a kid and now kind of bring it full circle and meet the athlete and get them signed. So enjoy that. My son doesn't like that part. He feels like it's kind of weird to like pay living people to sign their name on something and pay to meet them or whatever, but he reluctantly agrees to come along as kind of the price of admission. So we have fun doing that, or at least I did.
What was Olajuwon like? What was his demeanor? I know you get 30 seconds with the guy, but was he kind of serious, pensive, smile? Like what was his demeanor?
He was, it was pretty mechanical with him. They were really pushing us through. It was more the cattle like thing. Yeah. So, he looked up a little. We didn't really exchange any words. It was mostly just getting the autograph. Well, the corollary to it though was the next day we met Mike Tyson. So got the photo. Yeah. Got him to sign that. That one was actually cool because Luke and I don't know if you can see, but we each have our Satchel Paige.
Yeah. And fists raised too.
Yeah, right. And Mike noticed the Satch shirts and asked us about them and liked that we were each wearing Satch, and he was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And he made the effort to shake our hands and kind of greet us and to have at least a little bit of a meaningful interaction. So that was kind of cool. And one of the reasons I like to do it, we get a photo each year. And so this was the first national that I went to with Luke, where we met Barry Sanders, and you can see there, he's a tiny little guy. And now this year he's like a full grown dude. And so, I get one of these framed each year and just kind of keep it on my wall as a little bit of a
keepsake to get me to the next national. So that's part of the thing with
Yeah, I remember the Kareem photo you guys got. I think you guys were wearing Jackie jerseys in that one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Very
And then last one I'll mention for Friday, I got this 1914 Cracker Jack Frank Chance card in a PSA 2. And there we go. Pretty nice too. You know, got like a little bit of staining, not kind of the right amount for me. Quite well centered and nice color. And it's a tough card. He's the only Hall of Famer in the 2 Cracker Jack sets that appears in the 1914, but not the 1915 set. And the pops in the 14s obviously are a lot smaller. So Chance is a tough Cracker Jack card. Of all the Hall of Famers, he clearly has the lowest pop if you're, counting both sets. I think his total PSA pop in the 14s is like 50 or so. So most of the time you have an alternative. And what I'm doing is trying to assemble the Cracker Jack Hall of Famers in a combination of 14s and 15s. And so he's one that was, particularly challenging with just being in the one set. And, I'm not sure what types of collectors, go for that card. Maybe people who are doing what I'm doing, but it's a pretty tough one to track down. So I was excited to get that one from Ash. He had, pretty good fair price on it, negotiated a little bit, and, we quickly got a deal done, and glad to add that one to the CJ Hall of Famers.
That's awesome. Okay, I have 2 more cards I'm going to show, and then I know you have some more, and then maybe we'll close with a couple stories.
Yeah.
I'm going to show 2 cards I picked up from trade night. I think the last trade night I went to, and I would say I was like on full tilt at this point in time because I had sold some big cards. So the first one I acquired from your son. This is a 56 Topps Mickey Mantle Grayback. It's a PSA 2, but it is a nice looking 2. It's really well centered. I had this card on my list since the very first national I went to. You see one in every showcase, and it's so hard to really slow down and look at them. It's a great card, and then they all feel a little overpriced. But so I think I'd struggled for years. Should I buy a 4? Should I buy it in a 5? And I felt, I had just sold a Satchel Paige card to our other buddy Pat, and then I said, "Okay, Luke, what do you want for the Mick?" And he gave me a price that was only $300 more than I just got from Pat. And I was like,
Nice.
"All right, I'm taking my low cost basis from that Satch card and putting it into the Mick." And it felt really good to finally get one. And it continues a tradition of me, cashing out your son. He can take some small profits on augmenting my collection, and he's got such a good eye. I don't have any better moves than that so far. So that was one. And then another card I bought almost while walking out of the room. Here, I gotta find the photo. Let's take this one down. It was a modern shiny card that I used to have. And I had it as a raw card. I got it graded and I got a 9. When I get a high grade, I often feel like I have to sell just to kind of help pay for all the grading costs. It's a Kobe Bryant rookie. This is the one. It's the EX2000 that has like a translucent window with clouds in the background and the green border. And some guy had it on his table. It's a PSA 7, and it looks way nicer than the PSA 9 that I sold. It's really well centered. And I just started talking to the guy, and we got to a price super fast, just kind of on the higher end of comps. And I was like, I miss it. It was just one of those cards that you sold and you missed. And I didn't have a good Kobe rookie in the collection. And it's not that expensive of a card. It was well under 4 figures. So that was right at the end of the show when I was like, I can't go home with this much cash. I got my mantle, I got my Kobe Bryant rookie, and
looks awesome. Perfect collector grade. Man, that one looks cool against the sunset too.
Yeah. It's a good match for the sunset I had that night. So
yeah.
Anyhow, you'll see these all on my Instagram page sometime in the next week.
All right. Good stuff. Yeah. So I have just a couple more things here. So that I got the Sport Kings Sepola you have that image?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And for the listeners that might not remember who Seppala is.
right. He is, the dog sled racer from Alaska. So Jonathan, you and I are on big time Sport Kings case here. So, the thing that got this on my radar was a few years ago, my family and I made a trip one summer to Hawaii and then the next summer to Alaska. And I ended up thinking after that getting the Duke card from Hawaii and this card from Alaska would kind of be a fun way to sort of think about those trips. We had such a great time in both places. And Duke, the great swimmer, I can't pronounce his last name, swimmer and surfer, has a really neat card in this set. And then I love this one and I've been looking for it for a while. And I found it at trade night on Saturday night. Just, sitting there kind of next to no other Sport Kings, some other vintage stuff, but just kind of a mix of stuff. And it's a really nice example. It's a PSA 3. It's a really neat story on the back. It talks about what this guy did. So there was some type of outbreak. I can't remember what the disease was, but in Alaska in like 1925, and the transportation system isn't particularly well developed there. And so they had to get medicine to Nome, Alaska over, in the winter, over the course of hundreds and hundreds of miles. And he was the primary dog sledder that got that medicine there and saved, many, many lives. And the dog depicted is apparently like a really famous sledding dog, like one of the most famous pack leaders. And I think after getting this card, kind of looked into it a little bit, and apparently the dog was named by Time Magazine. Like, I can't remember exactly what the title was, but it was in like 2011, like the most outstanding animal of all time or something for having saved like hundreds of lives. This dog drove through like -30 degrees, like 90 miles a day through blizzards and stuff. And so this card has like a big chunk of that story on the back of it, which is pretty cool. And then talks about like dog sledding races that Seppala won and stuff. There's no mention of the Iditarod on the back, which is the one that we all know well.
Yeah.
And so the reason for that is, and I was just looking into this as well, the Iditarod started in 1973, and the course that they do for that race is the course that Seppala took in delivering that medicine to Nome in 1925. So he's like, he and the dog are they were the main ones on the course that delivered that. And so the Iditarod is like, kind of a commemoration of what these guys did. So it's just a pretty neat historical card and kind of continued to have more and more layers to it the more I looked into it. So that's that one.
Great looking example too.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks, man. And then the next one was, in terms of kind of the card itself, my 34 Gehrig that I got. This is probably my favorite PC card that I came home with. I mean, I love the Thorpe too, but I did already have one that I'm really happy with and gotta kind of figure that out. So it's a PSA 3, 1934 Gehrig, the number 61, the green background. And I had a PSA 2 and saw this one posted on Instagram. It was Josh Botnick, who's a very active transactor at the show. Probably a lot of people recognize that name and may have done some deals with him. But he was willing to let me trade my PSA 2 example into this one and put some cash on top of it. Every year I bring a few cards that I wouldn't mind upgrading. And a lot of times with the dealers, especially, like, it's hard to do because they'll be like, all right, we'll give you 70% on yours, and then you have to make up the full fair market value in cash or whatever. So I've done it. I did it one other time actually with my Hank Aaron rookie with a dealer and got the Aaron that I have now, like my forever Aaron. And now I have, I think, my forever copy of this card via that same strategy. So was pretty excited to get that one done, and it was a good fair deal. So
I'm impressed that you pulled it off, but I've found in prior years that it's hard to get a dealer. We mentioned how they're collectors also, and it's hard to get them to give you a more beautiful version of a card and to take an inferior version of a card without really penalizing you on the gap. And so
Right.
I've tried and failed so many times that I left thinking, no, you got to just sell your card and then put the cash into the new card. But you pulled it off. You've pulled it off twice in a very successful way.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah. And then here's my last one. So this is a 9-pocket binder page. And Jonathan, I think you're gonna like what I did here and the plan that I have. And I'm hoping you'll maybe join me in doing this. So these are 9 of the cards that I pulled at our Saturday night box rip. And so my plan now, we've been doing this box rip, I think, for 4 years, the last 4 nationals, and it's all like 80s and junk wax stuff. So the key one was a Bo Jackson football rookie from 88 Tops. Got a Jerry Rice card, an LT, 84 Don Russ, Ricky Henderson. So what I've decided to do to kind of commemorate that each year is to build, you got a bow as well. That's right. I'm going to build at least one 9-pocket of kind of like my favorite rips from that and add that to the raw binder. And I think that'll be a really fun way to remember the rips that we have.
I love it. I am going to do it. I did it the first year, and I think then I forgot about it last year. But yeah, I have a few of them here from the rip. I got the Bo Jackson, Dan Marino, John Elway, and that's just from the football box. So totally, I think I still have all the cards that I had set aside from the other ones, but I have some binder work to do. But I love the idea of just doing one page, just a 9-pocket every year. And we'll see how far we get in that project.
Nice. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, that was a lot of pickups. And I'm really impressed with your haul from this year. We talked about ending kind of with a story or two from the show. I wondered, I might just throw it to you and let you have the last word, but what were, a few other tales from the show that you wanted to kind of leave folks with?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We've gone for a while here, as we tend to do. We always think we're going to be a little shorter, and then we start talking about cards and can't help ourselves. But yeah, so I'll tell one story, which is kind of one of my favorite interactions from the show. And it was from a trade night. So, I was walking around, I tend to set up for part of it and then walk around for part of it, and was walking around and, saw a kid set up. I don't know. I guess he's probably maybe 10 or 11 years old. And he had like, I don't know, 15 or 20 cards, and probably about a quarter of them were vintage. He had I think a Hank Aaron that was out, like a 67 Aaron or something like that. And so I stopped and looked at it and kind of talked to him for a minute. And it's like, what's going on here with these cards? Like, you have mostly modern stuff, but I see you have some vintage stuff here too. Like, what are you doing? And he said, well, I'm kind of trying to work to remake my collection. I used to collect modern, but now I'm really getting into vintage stuff. And I said, oh, wow, that's really cool. We always enjoy meeting kids that are into that. And I said, what's really gotten you into that? And he said, well, my dad and I watched the Ken Burns baseball documentary and watched it like start to finish. And it really has like made me love the game and love the history of the game and stuff. And so I was like, wow, that's really cool. And we started talking a little bit and stuff. And so what I've been kind of doing at the trade nights the last few years, and you've maybe been with me once or twice, but when I find kids that are into vintage and like it seems legitimate, I keep a few cards with me, like lower end, like $100 cards or so. And I like to like kind of pull a few of them out and let them just pick one for their collection. And, just kind of a nice little thing. Like, there's so much generosity in this hobby, and I've benefited from that a ton. And just as importantly, from my perspective, like, Luke has, especially when he was first starting out, like that was part of what really got him so excited about it, was like some gifts that he got and just like great interactions with people who kind of, just love this hobby and want other people to love it too. And so I'm just, try to do a little thing along those lines every once in a while. So I pulled out, I had the Hank Aaron and Willie Mays card. Was it from 64? The card that I'm talking about, where they're standing with each other? Yeah. So I had one of those, and I had a 71 Wilt, and I had a 51 Bowman Larry Doby. And those were kind of like the three and he immediately picked the Doby. And I was like, wow, this kid's really legit. Yeah, right. You got Aaron, Mays, and
and Will, you would kind of think, most kids, but he's like, no, I loved learning about Dobie when I was watching the documentary and stuff. And so that was really neat. Like, this kid really knew his stuff, really young, just, getting really excited about the history of the game and vintage cards. And then toward the end of the discussion, I realized it was his dad, like, kind of sitting across the table from him, and he had some cards out. So I went over there and talked to him for a while and saw some of his stuff. And I don't think he'd been collecting too long, but he had great cards, like some really cool stuff that he showed me. And then, I was looking at what he had, and he had a 49 Bowman Musial. And that's a card that I don't have anymore because I moved mine when I got my PSA Sport Kings Thorpe earlier this year, because I did partial trade for that. And I've kind of been looking for one. So started looking at it, and it was like a really nice example. Like, they're tough to find. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Like, centered, like pretty perfectly centered with a clean surface. It's a SGC 4.5. And so, like, perfect fit for me, for my collection, like exactly what I was looking for. And he had it for sale. And, so there wasn't a price. So I asked him, and he pulled out VCP, and he was like, obviously it's a really nice example, but, let's just do like average VCP price. 'Cause, that's really cool what you just did for my kid or whatever. So it's like, hey, that's fine. That's more than fair. I appreciate it. Like, I wasn't looking for anything like that. I didn't even know you were here. And he was like, yeah, no, just let's just do that. I think that's good. So it was like a neat moment. And then I ended up talking to both of them for a while, and it was like just the hobby kind of coming full circle, and just like so many good vibes, and just kind of fun moments just in that 10 or 15 minute interaction, and just cool to see the passion from the young kids. And I'd say I saw that a lot there. I saw a lot of young collectors, like on the vintage side, ages, maybe 10 to 15 or 17. I'd say really more so than I've seen at other trade nights and other shows. So that always makes me feel good. Yeah, obviously there's the part about, us wanting to perpetuate the hobby, but for our own self-interest. But there's also the part about, like, we all have so much fun, and it's such a great community. And so it's exciting to see new kids who are passionate about it coming into it, and knowing the kind of great journey that they're going to have. So that was one of my cooler moments.
That's awesome. My daughter Lucia still has, I believe it was a Roberto Clemente that you gave her a couple of years ago from that same stack of cards. It's so cool that you do that. And yeah, it's awesome to see the young collectors come along. I hadn't even heard of Dobie when I was a kid. I would have gone for the Fence Busters like before. Exactly. But that's really cool. Well, hey, thanks so much to all the folks in the chat. This was really fun, and I love all the interaction we get. And man, this was a blast, Nate. We could have kept sharing cards for another hour, but let's do it in another month or so.
Yeah, that sounds great, man. And I echo your thoughts on the chat. Thank you guys for joining us and adding a lot in the comments. We really appreciate it. And it's great to see so many of you that are commenting here at the show. We've got a chance to hang out with David and TJ and, Petty and several of the others here. And Double D, I watched a good chunk of your recap show the other day and thought it was awesome. So yeah, love the community. Thank you guys for coming out. And Jonathan, always have a great time talking cards with you, man.
Amen. All right. Cheers. We'll see you.
Take care.